A couple of weeks ago, someone suggested that I try making a nuke in Besiege, which of course I knew I had to try. I made a little missile launcher before, but this thing is going to be on an entirely different scale. Now starting out in the sandbox here, you can see the first thing I'm doing is putting down a wood block, and on that I'm putting down a wheel. Now if you've seen my bomber video, you'll know what I'm doing here because I'm putting down 4 grabbers, and on that I'm putting down 4 bombs. Now the first thing I wanted to focus on with this missile was a way to get the bombs to explode out, and you can see here the spinning wheel flings the bombs away, and that already was pretty good. By stacking on a second wheel though, I'm able to double the speed and I can get the bombs even further out. Now my plan was just to keep doing this, and after I get to a pretty good amount of layers, I should be able to get the bombs going really far and also have a nice gradient coming in as well. And once I get to 5 here, you can see that the bombs on top were spinning the fastest, but in the middle, they were almost completely stopped. And that's when I realized that once I get above about 3 layers, this design seems to break and something ends up stopping it from rotating. So I went ahead next and I deleted the spinning wheel, and after that, you can see here I'm adding in a water cannon. Now my plan here is to drop the bomb through the water cannon, and it should push it forward, and that should get me some distance here, and it did seem to work. The real advantage of the water cannon though is if I stack more bombs on top of this, they'll also fall through the water stream, and you'll notice something interesting. The bombs that fall through second go a shorter distance. That's because they're going faster through the water, so they have less time to interact with it, and that means that I create this really nice line going from a really far distance to a close distance, and I'm able to create a really nice distribution. So with this first one looking okay, what I want to do is copy this over to the other side here, and you can see it works in virtually the same way. The real advantage of this design too is that I'm able to copy it like this and get really compact designs. Sometimes things would explode in the air, but when they worked, it didn't seem to be too bad at all, and after not too much time, I was able to get 8 spokes of this working. Now to get this working in a missile though, I need some way to contain the bombs, and for that, you see here I'm putting down a paneling piece. Now I'm going to turn that into glass, and you can see here I'm creating this nice tube. This tube should prevent the bombs from falling out of the missile, but should also let them fall down to interact with the water cannon. At first here though, things didn't really seem to be working the way I was expecting, and the glass tube would frequently just be weird. Eventually though, I did get something that somewhat worked here, and it seemed to let the bombs through. Next up though, I did need a way to control the bombs so they didn't fall through unless I wanted them to, and that's what this piston's gonna be for. Now if the piston's extended out here, it should prevent the bombs from falling down, and as soon as I pull it in, it'll allow them to fall down onto the water cannon. And with 4 bombs here, this didn't seem to be too bad at all. As soon as I pulled back that piston, the bombs seemed to fall through and worked pretty well. Once I added more bombs into the mix though, things got a little chaotic and it would seem to be pretty inconsistent. Now while I liked the water cannon solution, I wanted to come back to it in a second here because I had another idea of how to make the spinning wheel thing work. Now firstly, to get more bombs, what I wanted to do was try rotating in a second wheel with grabbers onto the first one. Now I was hoping this would allow me to get more grabbers in one space, but it seemed to just explode out a lot, which wasn't really that helpful. Next though, I had an idea to put a spinning wheel on the spinning wheel. This should allow me to fling off more bombs a little more chaotically and hopefully get a better spread. Now once I got this working at first, it wasn't really the best. While it was spinning up, it was frequently just running into the main wheel and then just exploding. After replacing some stuff to make it more stable, it still was kind of a disaster here, and it really didn't want to do anything but just instantly explode. Somehow during this though, I got another idea of how to fix my water cannon solution. Firstly, I'm changing out the water cannon for a steam cannon here, and you can see it should have a lot more power. Dropping this bomb into it, you can see just how much further it goes, and it really shoots it away. If I drop 4 bombs here, it becomes pretty obvious just how much better the steam is, and already that was looking better than anything I had before. Now next, I had realized that I could just replace my glass tube with a bunch of grabbers. There's no reason why I can't just hard grab onto the bombs like this, and dropping them down did seem to work. Now they were getting caught on the grabbers below where they were originally, and to fix that here, I turned off auto grab. This allows all the bombs to drop down at once, and you can see already that's a pretty good spread. And just like before, you can see I copied over the bombs and rotated them around, and I rotated around a second set of these 90 degrees. This seemed to work quite well here, and it seemed to just be a better version of what I made before. I tried adding in 8 bombs though, and it seemed to be a little glitchy here, and as soon as I tried to shoot it off, they kind of just exploded. I decided to try again here, and you can see I separated out the bombs a little bit more. This helped a lot here, and already it was looking even better. Now I had another idea of how to make this spread even better, and for that, you see I'm staggering the bombs a little bit. This means that there's 16 different directions the bombs are going instead of 8, and already you can see I get a lot more of a uniform distribution. Now the other great thing about this system is I'm able to just keep stacking bombs on it, and as far as I could tell, it just keeps working. It also seems to be incredibly stable here, and the bombs seem to go a very predictable distance. This is going to be really good in the air because it means that I should be able to fine-tune this really well. Now, I doubled up the bombs again because why not? And already you can see I'm getting a lot more bombs in the middle, and this seems to be working exactly as well as I would want. You probably have noticed by now, though, I'm missing some bombs in the middle here, but that's going to be okay, and I do have a plan for that in the future. Now, next up here, you can see I'm putting down some blocks on the bottom of the rocket, and on that, I'm putting down some flamethrowers. Now, the reason I'm doing this is to selectively heat up those cannons on the bottom, and instead of just having them steam, I'm able to turn them back into water. Now, at first, I was having some problems where the flamethrowers would just glitch right off, but after putting the flamethrowers inside of the rocket, I did solve that problem, and you can see now if I turn the cannon into water at the last second, I'm able to drop bombs straight down. And with the launch system looking pretty good here, the next thing I wanted to do is get this ready to work on a missile. The main problem with this design is that there's so many pins, it's not really going to be able to fly. So what I did here is started to recreate it, but I'm making it a lot more friendly to be turned into a missile. Now, after bracing everything together here, at least with a single ring of bombs, it seemed to be working okay, and next I wanted to add on a couple more layers. This was where I noticed some problems though, because it was really unstable, and it was very easy for it to just fall apart. So next up here, I went for a slightly different design, and you'll notice now I'm putting all of the water cannons on a single block. For whatever reason, you could do this in Besiege, and the game seems to be okay with it. So after copying all those in place here, I started to put back on the bombs. My new bracing technique at least seemed to be marginally better, so with that looking good, I did need a way to get this to fire when I was in the air. The main issue I'm facing right now is that as the bombs fall down normally, they fall down onto the static cannons and get shot away. In the air though, if I just release the bombs, they're gonna fall at the same speed as the missile, and that means they're never gonna fall into the steam. To fix that though, instead of dropping the bombs down, my plan is to release the bombs and then push up the center mechanism with the steam cannons and have the steam interact with the bombs that way. So to do that, I put down a ballast on the bottom, and you can see here I'm putting down 2 steam cannons. Now after cranking up their power a lot here, I wanted to give it a test, but I noticed the whole thing was falling off to the side and kinda would just explode the moment I released the bombs. Now, this whole mechanism seemed to be really overcomplicated, and I realized a better way to do it might be to put a separate ring of steam cannons on every single bomb layer. Now I started out here with a couple of bombs, and of course this seemed to be fine. So I stacked on a few more layers of this, and after that I gave it another test, and while all the bombs did seem to go in roughly the same ring, by adjusting the steam cannon's power, I should be able to get them to go different distances just like before. So the launch system looking okay here, I did a little bit more work to brace this together to make it a lot stronger. With that done, I was able to copy this over again, and this time it should be able to hold itself together a lot better than before. And dropping this in the air, it did seem to work, but it was a little bit weird. You'll notice that the steam cannons are almost shooting up as they fall down. In fact, in slow motion, you can see as I release it here, some of the bombs really aren't moving all that much, and that caused them to bump back into the missile, and then it just explodes. So my new plan here is to add on some water cannons onto the bottom of the missile, and once I got these completely surrounding it, I turned up their power a lot. These are going to allow me to stop in the air, and that should allow me to fling off the bombs just like I've done before. Now, the other good thing about putting steam cannons on every single layer is that they throw off so fast that before the rocket has a chance to fall over, it seems to work out. It was bending a lot more than I'd like though, so I did use a little bit more bracing here just to keep it all together. And once I had that, you can see I made this a lot taller, and it still seems to be working pretty well. In fact, these bombs may have even gotten off too far here, and I'm probably gonna have to reel it in or fire them off a lot closer to the ground. Now, one thing I did want to change here was I wanted to add on a speedometer. This will automatically fire off the bombs once I slow myself down to the right speed. And after adding that in here, you can see it does sort of seem to work. As I go slow enough, it tries to release the bombs, but it did also cause me to explode. And another test here, as I was starting to slow down, my rocket started to tilt to the side, and that meant that I had enough side velocity that the speedometer never got going slow enough to ever trigger off the bombs. At the very least though, once I pinned myself in the air, it did seem to throw off the bombs perfectly fine here, so I figured as long as I added in some controls to stabilize myself, this should work out fine. Now, in order to build in those controls here, you can see I'm adding in 2 water cannons on all of the corners of the missile. These are gonna allow me to push side to side or forward and back, and it should prevent me from tilting at all. And once I got all those on there, next I needed a way to control these, and for that, I'm adding in an angle meter. These are gonna see if I tilt a little bit too far to the left or right, and if I do, they'll fire off the correct cannon. Now, I started off with them so that if I go more than 3 degrees, it'll fire off the cannons and try to keep me straight. Giving this a test here, just by manually controlling it, you'll see I'm able to use the left and right controls to keep myself moving back and forth, and once I tie this into the angle meter here, it should help out a lot. And in fact, that's this next test here. As I start to tilt a little bit too far to the left left or right, you'll see that the correct cannon turns on to push me back. Overall, this seemed to be doing a pretty good job here, and seemed able to slow myself down and fire off the bombs. Now, I copied the entire thing here, and you see that I mirrored it down. The reason I did that is to start working on the main propulsion system, and it's going to be pretty similar to before here. What I wanted to do here is add on a stream of these water cannons, and I want to turn them into steam. To do that, I was going to try to use this flaming ball, just having a lot of problems where this just really wasn't that stable. So next up, I got rid of this huge engine, and I was going to replace it with a much smaller one. You can see I added in 4 water cannons, and after that, I added in 4 more water cannons and rotated them down to fit right on the ballast. These water cannons had a pretty good amount of thrust here, but by adding in a flaming ball, I should be able to make that a lot more. And you can see already, that definitely seems to be true. So with that done, I tried copying this over onto the missile here, and I wanted to see if it would fly. And unfortunately here, after I unpinned myself, the steam cannons seemed to have such a high impulse that they instantly compressed the bombs and made them explode. So I decided to get rid of those here, and after that, I copied over the propulsion that I made from before. This stream of water cannons, while it was a little clunky, did seem to work really well here, so after copying that on, I set it to have different controls, and I wanted to give it a test. And already here, I see I'm able to get off the ground, but I noticed there's a big stability problem, and that causes me to explode. So to fix that, I added on 4 more water cannons on the top, and these are also part of that angle system to keep myself going straight. It's a little more complicated than that though, since once I flip the rocket, I need those to flip the direction that they're shooting. After setting that up here though, I gave it a test, and it seemed to be fine. While the missile was bending a little bit more than I'd like, the water cannons did seem to be keeping it going straight, and overall, it did not seem to be that bad. And now the last thing I wanted to focus on here was going to be paneling. For this, I just want to put on some wood panels and make it look a bit prettier, but the wood panels seem to be adding on too much stability, and you'll notice they end up breaking, and they frequently cause the rocket to just explode. While I was working on this, I also saw here that sometimes it would start spinning in the air, and while this isn't a big problem, it is a little distracting, and it's kind of hard to make it stop doing that. So my plan here was just add on some fins for a little bit of stability. This should also take some load off of the main water cannons on top and make them have to shoot a little less often. Now I couldn't really fit these fins on the inside here, so instead I made another block on the outside and put them on that. And after copying it over to the other side and eventually all the sides here, you can see going into the air, it doesn't seem to be spinning at all, and it's helped quite a bit. Now to get this moving over to the side, I also added on 1 water cannon that's job is specifically to turn me over. You can see that sort of worked here, and I'm facing the other direction. I did forget to turn back on my stability assist though, and then things got a little chaotic. But finally here, I wanted to launch this into the air and give it 1 test here and make sure it works before I start nuking some of the villages. Now I had a few runs here where I slowed down a little bit too quickly, and that caused me to turn over to the side and eventually lose control. I gave it another test here though, and you can see this time I'm doing something slightly different. As I go into the air here, I'm slowly turning and coming off the main throttle. This prevents me from going a little bit too fast into my turn, and once I start turning around here, I should be able to start slowing down and drop my bombs. This was very close to working, but I slowed down a little too late and hit into the ground. So I gave this 1 more test here, and you can see as I launch into the air, it's pretty much identical to before, but this time I slowed down slightly earlier, and I actually managed to stop in the air here, and you can see I got some pretty good bomb coverage. Now, this missile was working a lot better than I was expecting. The coverage it gets is not half bad, and while it's not quite as symmetrical as it was when I was doing those ground tests, overall in the air, it still seems to be quite controllable, and it works about 1/3 of the time. With this many bombs on it though, that's really not that bad in my opinion, and overall, I'm quite pleased with how this came out. So if you guys have any other ideas for what I should make a Besiege, make sure to leave them down in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more content like this. If you liked the video, make sure to like the video, and otherwise, till next time.